What's up everyone, Vu of NVU Films back with another video, back with another DJI Osmo Pocket 3 video. I'm sorry, this is probably like my 6th video on this camera and I'm sure you're sick of it, but hopefully this might be the last one I need to share with you, and that is pretty much how to avoid creating trash footage with your DJI Pocket 3. One of the most common comments I had on my past videos was that, hey Vu, your videos look a lot better than the other YouTubers that were using the camera. And there's no flex on my part because a lot of these other YouTubers got this DJI Pocket 3 on launch day for free from DJI to do a review. And a lot of them were probably in a rush. And a lot of them was probably trying to showcase the camera as a camera that you just pick up and start using and start filming. And naturally, when you pick up something and just start filming, it is in auto white balance, it is in auto exposure, it is in normal color profile, it is in 8-bit, whatever. And usually there's not a lot of good with shooting a camera just with default settings. Those settings are usually safe for the beginner user who just wants to get decent, sharp footage with their camera. But if you want nice, high quality, pleasing footage, I'm trying to not use the word cinematic, but I guess you could define it as that in some cases, you're gonna have to set your camera up. The way I set up my DJI Pocket 3 is obviously shooting in D-Log. You wanna walk around the streets with a big old log size D, you're gonna have to shoot in D-Log to be able to grade your footage. Also, when you shoot in D-Log, it shoots in 10-bit. 10-bit has a lot more colors than 8-bit. You could do a YouTube search for all that nonsense. But with today's technology, with today's cell phones, with today's cameras all being very accessible, very cheap, very affordable for anyone to buy, if you're shooting your camera with straight out of camera colors, standard colors, you're doing yourself a disservice, especially if you're trying to stand out. You need to film in D-Log and you need to grade or get some LUTs to make your colors stand out, aside from just being straight up natural Rec 709, because every camera will have nice Rec 709 colors, 4K, sharp imagery, but to make yourself stand out, you're gonna have to grade. So you should shoot in D-Log. You get a lot more dynamic range, meaning more details in the shadow areas and the highlights. That way you can control the contrast and the harshness of lights and etc., the whole 9 yards in your footage. Aside from just shooting in D-Log, I also shoot with -2 sharpness. I don't want too much added sharpening from the camera. That is what makes your footage look too digital, look like a cell phone, basically, with all that added sharpening. And then people will be like, well, but Vu, don't you want sharpening? No. If you look at films in cinema, Hollywood, or your favorite TV show, that footage has a lot of detail, but it's not overly sharpened, which gives you like all these weird artifacts and jagged edges on, like, let's say your beard or something. You want detail, not sharpness. And I turned that to -2. The other option I could fix also is added noise reduction. I just leave it at default because it's a 1-inch sensor. You're in low light, things are gonna be noisy, and you're probably gonna end up adding noise reduction in post anyway. And this camera, I found, does a really good job with this noise reduction. So I leave it on default. The other thing that limits this camera's ability to have quote unquote more cinematic footage is the fact that it is 1-inch and it's an f2. That look you get with f2 from a 1-inch sensor that's probably equivalent to about an f5.6 on a full frame camera, meaning your depth of field is not gonna be as shallow as like a full frame camera at f2. It will look like a full frame camera at f5.6, which is, for the most part, you get some background separation, but things are still relatively detailed compared to like an f2 full frame. So when you're walking around vlogging on an f2 out in sunlight, your camera has to use a faster shutter speed to be able to get proper exposure. And when you have a faster shutter speed to get proper exposure, you end up having more sharpness in your shot because as you're moving, there's a lot less motion blur. Now you notice I do have motion blur On this shot right now, as I'm walking around and moving my hands and stuff like that, it's because I'm using an ND filter. ND filter takes away light so that your camera can properly expose the image in the proper shutter speed for the frame rate you're shooting at. In my case, for this talking head right here, I'm shooting at 4K, 24p, and to get proper shutter speed, to get proper motion blur, so not everything is super jagged and sharp and detailed as I'm walking around and moving, I want to double my frame rate, which is 1/50 is the shutter speed I'm looking for. If I'm shooting 4K 60, I want to get around 1/120 or 1/125, depending on the shutter speed the camera has available. Look, I'm a wedding filmmaker, run and gun, and I have to crank shutter a lot of times. But when I do crank shutter, I make sure that that situation does not have a lot of movement. If they're just standing there talking like this, the shutter speed does not have that much of an effect because there's not that much movement. The only time the shutter speed effect is really crucial is when there's a lot of movement. So sometimes I might be going around, let's say I am capturing movement and I don't have an ND filter handy, and I'll make sure I'm shooting 4K 60. 4K 60 allows me to slow down that footage. So if I'm trying to film someone walking and getting exposure with a nice shallow depth of field, let's say f1.8, and I'm out in bright sunlight, it's going to force me to bring my shutter up, maybe even to 1/2000, which is not going to have a lot of motion blur. But if I apply slow motion, they are not moving as fast anymore. So then the whole motion blur issue kind of goes out the window for me. So, but every other situation, if I had time and was able to control everything, of course, I would want to use an ND filter to make sure that I maintain the correct shutter speed to get the right motion blur in my footage. And with the Osmo Pocket 3, you do have the option of buying the ND filter from DJI. It comes with 3 ND filters and it's $60. But I have news for you. Freewell just released its new mega limited edition 14-pack of filters for your Osmo Pocket 3. It includes ND8, ND16, ND32, ND64, ND128, ND256, and ND1000. ND8 with a polarizer, ND16 with the polarizer, ND32 with the polarizer, ND16 with the polarizer, a circular polarizer, and a 1/4 mist diffusion filter, as well as LPR filter. I'll tell you right now, I have no idea what the LPR filter is, but we obviously know what I'm using the ND filter for. The current ND I'm using is a ND16, and this is the whole pack of filters. As you can see, it is a lot. The cost of all of this is $150. You're getting 14 filters for $150, whereas you buying just 3 ND filters from DJI, that is $60. So really, this is like $10 per filter, whereas the DJI's is $20 per filter. And it also has a mist filter here, whereas the Black Pro mist filter from DJI is a whopping $50. So everything here is included for $150. This is a great value, and I use Freewell filters for all of my filters. All the ones I use for my Sony FX3, A7S III, ZV-E1. I only use Freewell filters, and they're awesome. And of course, they're magnetic, so they just snap on. So right now, I'm using the ND16. If I want to use a mist filter with my ND filter, I simply just take the mist filter out, it's magnetic, and I just put it right on top of the ND filter. And now I have ND with mist. And what does the mist filter do? I don't know if you noticed this yet, but what a mist filter does is it diffuses the highlights pretty much. Pretty much any light source gets diffused quite a bit more, giving it an even more quote unquote filmic, cinematic, YouTube douchey look. And on top of that, it also softens up the sharp edges of these digital sensors quite a bit. So you just get a better look overall, in my opinion, especially if you're trying to make things more cinematic looking. Another tip is actually with these wide angle lenses, the 20mm plus the 16mm attachment that you could put onto this, you want to stay center composition most of the time. because when you start getting over here, as you can see, my hand's all distorted. So if you're trying to do rule of thirds on like a wide angle sensor, it's probably not a good idea. You want to say center composition when you're dealing with wide angle lenses. Yeah, so these filters are completely stackable. Unfortunately, you cannot put any of these on the 16mm wide angle attachment. You can stack this on top of the Black Pro mist filter of the DJI Pocket 3 that is from DJI, but why would you need that when you could just get this kit and just do everything on its own? So yeah, this is actually my preferred look, is to have a nice mist filter on top just to, again, get some more diffusion on the highlights and create this bloom, this halation. I want to see if I could actually show an example of the halation here. Turn the flashlight on. Yeah, as you can see, you see that nice glow on the flashlight there instead of just like a big sharp highlight. That is from the mist filter. The halation, the glow is from the mist filter. And if I were to take this mist filter off, and this is how the flashlight looks without any mist filter. And then of course I'm gonna put the mist filter back on. That's how it looks like with. So it's a pretty big difference in my book. It is a quarter strength, so it's pretty aggressive. Other filters it has is polarizer filter. You probably know what that is, but pretty much it just helps you remove glare out of shots. So if you want to shoot through a window and there's a lot of glare in the window, you put a polarizer on, then you can shoot through it. If you're shooting water and there's a lot of glare coming off the water, you put a polarizer on there and it removes the glare from the water, so you don't get too much harsh highlights coming back in your face. Anyways, guys, I hope that this video was insightful. I hope you got something out of it. And hey, if you want to pick up your own Freewell Mega Filter Pack for your Osmo Pocket 3, links are in the description below. You purchase them there, obviously, I'll get some commission off of it. Hey, it's gonna help out the channel. I'm not sponsored by DJI. DJI didn't send me this camera. I don't even have any affiliate links through DJI. They won't even approve me. So click on the links in the description below. Get your Freewell Mega Limited Edition filter pack for your Osmo Pocket 3 in my link. Appreciate it, and until next time, lighten up.
Hey man, what toy is that?
It's the DJI Pocket 3.
Oh my god, that toy camera, it's rad. It takes so long to set up.
Actually, it boots up pretty quick. Starts right up.
That screen, it's small, like the thing in your pan. You can't see it.
Actually, this 2-inch screen is pretty clear, but if you need to, you can monitor the footage on your phone.
The small sensor image quality, it's rad.
It's actually a 1-inch sensor, 4K 60, 4K 120, 10-bit with D-Log.
It takes too long to put away.
Actually, it turns off really quick and the gimbal locks right up.
The battery, it don't last a long time like me in the bedroom.
The battery on this little device is actually quite decent, but you could even extend the battery with this extension.
It don't have Canon color shine. And the gimbal, it play out. IBIS much better.
Most cameras have decent IBIS these days, but nothing matches an actual gimbal.
Let me show you. Hey man, this the cinematic Canon vlog. The Canon color shine is the best.
Bro, why does the corners look like jello?
It film it organic shape.